past couple of years that numerous funders have come forward with grant opportunities that are targeted but also have very small windows for application. So if we don't have the ability to both apply and then receive the award in a way that is nimble and makes sense, we often lose out on those funds. I've seen it happen through my job in state government, and I certainly wouldn't want us to put additional barriers to us receiving monies, especially given that the people on the board have done such good work and wouldn't allow us to get involved in something that wasn't for the benefit of our schools. So I certainly hope that we'll vote yes.
Thank you.
Hello, John Garuba, 30 Meadow Drive. I do not support this article. Although it may seem attractive to accept unplanned monies, nothing in life is free, and money certainly comes with unseen and unplanned costs. These costs come at the price of local control and the voters having a say in what goes on in our schools. Hollis is an exceptional place precisely because of this great community and the people that live here. This warrant article would be a small step to invite others that may not share our community's interests to participate in governance over our most valuable resource, our children. I believe our children are worth any additional costs and any additional time to come here to review how we fund and how we make sure their education is what we expected. Our community has been very successful at providing an outstanding education for our children without expecting funds not approved by voters up until now. I see no reason to change. It should be up to the taxpayers to make any decisions about how to fund the children's education and evaluate those intangible costs personally, not left up to a small group. I implore everyone to stand up for our children and protect the community, and please vote against ceding local control to others. Thank you.
Ms. St. John, you have a voting card? Thank you.
Yeah. Michelle St. John, 29 Orchard Drive. I am in support of Article 7. I just wanted to clarify what Mr. Sachs had said, and I just want to clarify with the attorney that procedures remain the same for these funds. Anything over $5,000, I just want to confirm, would still have a public hearing, would still allow public input. So the procedures remain the same. Is that correct? Yeah. Based on that and based on the recommendations from the school board and the budget committee, I'm in support of this article. Thank you.
Mr. Garuba, since you've already spoken to the topic, I'm going to let people who haven't spoken yet. Do I know you?
No.
Identify yourself.
You really don't know me. My name is Jim Belanger, 32 Plain Road. This article scares me. And I'll give you an example. We had a grant one year from the federal government to put in sidewalks in town. Not going to cost us anything. Let's put the sidewalks in. Well, guess how much we spend on fixing sidewalks and plowing forever after that. So I think we should vote on each project at town meeting and not allow somebody to accept the funds for a project and not knowing the ramifications that it may come up later on. Let us decide to put ourselves in a bind. That's only one example. There are others I could bring up, but that's just one example of getting a grant that costs you money later on.
All right, Joe, your turn.
So we just heard the town attorney say that the procedures would remain the same for accepting money, but I don't think that's exactly correct, because currently to accept money, we have to have the entire town come and agree that it's a good thing. It's not the same to have a public hearing and then have the board decide. There's a big difference between a public hearing and an annual town meeting. And the annual town meeting is where voters get to say, voters are in charge and they get to make a difference with their vote. A public hearing is not nearly the same as that. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, may I add a detail, please?
Yes.
I was just conferring with our legal, and he pointed out that the town of Hollis has already adopted this the town version of it. It's a different RSA number. Mr. Shaughnessy, can you?
Yeah, RSA 31.
That's okay.
It's 31:95-B.
31:95-B. It's the town counterpart to this RSA that we have in our warrant article. Hollis did adopt that, we believe, in around 2017.
Mr. Butto.
Yes, I would, probably not necessary, but I would like to move the question.
Motion to move the question, seconded by Mr. Sachs. If you're done discussing this and ready to vote, please raise your cards. If you want to keep on discussing it, please raise your cards. All right, the motion on to end debate has passed. It is now time to vote on Article 7. If you are in favor of Article 7, please raise your card. If you are opposed, please raise your card. The motion passes. Article 8 is a contingent article in case Article 7 failed. Since Article 7 passed, I would like to see a motion to pass over Article 8. Moved by Ms. Roy, seconded by Ms. Arthur. Is there any debate on passing over Article 8? Seeing none, if you're in favor of passing over Article 8, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? And the motion passes. Article 9 is the operating budget. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $13,826,368 for the support of schools, for the payment of salaries for the school district officials and agents, and for the payment of statutory obligations of the district. This appropriation does not include appropriations voted in other warrant articles. The school board recommends 500. The budget committee recommends 800. The estimated tax impact is $7.76 per thousand. Moved by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Mann. Mr. Guillen.
Thank you. Just for context briefly, each fall, the Budget Committee, the school board, and the administration commence the budget cycle. The Budget Committee comes up with what we call guidance. It's not strictly a year-over-year comparison in the budget. It removes some of the things that are non-controllable, but the essence is that we set a target for what we would like to see the budget come in at. This past year, we set a relatively low goal for growth and encountered some externalities. There was discussion earlier about things that are outside of the town control. We get a mandate from Concord for contributions to the retirement system. We don't get to vote on it. We have to fund that. So you'll see in a couple slides that that's a significant driver in this equation. You can see that variance from the original guidance was just under $100,000 more than what the Budget Committee had recommended. Having said that, when we saw the business case and the need, it was clear that these external costs around employee benefits were going to drive reduction in educational services if we did not make some allowance in the guidance. Therefore, the Budget Committee voted to increase guidance by $99,000. First topic I'd like to address is the staffing changes. Overall, there's a net increase of 2.5 FTE or full-time equivalent employees. 0.2 of that is an environmental science teacher going from part-time to full-time. A portion, 0.3, of a facility substitute that's in essence kind of a floater to work between the schools to cover maintenance and building engineering responsibilities. There's going to be an increase of 1 add to staff for special education, self-contained K through 3. My understanding that's an intense special education program. And finally, speech pathologist. We are bringing that service back into the district. In the past, we've contracted that. So there's, in essence, largely offsetting costs in contracted services because we're bringing this on board. We always like to hit the major increases and decreases. Back to my initial remarks, our number one increase in terms of absolute dollars was the employee retirement contributions that, as an employer, the Hollis School District is required to make. Those totaled $223,000. Salaries for classroom teachers went up and that was a 23% increase. That's highly variable. The rate changes every 2 years. So we got the rate, and that's where we are. The classroom teacher salaries increased 3.4%. I think it's worth underscoring that those are approved by the voters in warrant articles at prior meetings. So this represents the third year of a 3-year contract that was approved 2 years ago. Or was it 3 years ago? 2 years ago. Employer health insurance premiums increases $75,000. So if you look at that first item and the third item, we're approaching $300,000. The administration and school board were able to come in with a budget that exceeded initial guidance by only $100,000. So $200,000 was absorbed in other line items. Special education salaries, that's the add to staff that I talked about on the previous slide, just under $70,000. And the response to intervention is a program prior to formal special education where educational behavioral issues are there's intervention engagement by the teachers in the hopes that those students subsequently do not require more costly and more involved special education services. Fortunately, with the increases, we get some major decreases. The first two involve special education, tuition, and transportation. Again, for folks who might not be familiar, when we have students that have special education needs that cannot be satisfied or are deemed better served outside the school district pays tuition for a different school. We had a decrease in those costs. We have a requirement to provide transportation to that alternate educational setting. That cost went away, so those were two significant savings. Contracted speech services, one of the increases one of the adds to staff was a pathologist, speech pathologist. We see contracted speech services are going down significantly because we're bringing that capability in-house. Replacement computer equipment. There's a rolling plan to maintain the stock of computers, tablets, and so forth, and this year was a year that we saw an opportunity to decrease that. And finally, 15% saving of almost $60,000 in the special ed transportation.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 9? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting Article 9, please raise your card. Thank you. All opposed, raise your card. Article 9 passes. Now we return to Article 2. Mr. Butto.
I would like to move to restrict reconsideration of Articles 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Motion is to restrict reconsideration on Articles 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Second by Mr. Harris. All in favor of restricting reconsideration, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed? The motion to restrict passes. Article 2, which is the SAU budget. Shall the school district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $594,122 as the Hollis School District's portion of the SAU budget of $1,953,257 for the forthcoming fiscal year. This year's adjusted budget of $1,922,864 with $584,877 assigned to the school budget of this school district will be adopted if the article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district voters voting in this school administrative unit. The school board recommends 500. The budget committee recommends 800. The estimated tax impact is 33 cents a thousand. Moved by Ms. Roy, seconded by Brooke Arthur. Ms. Kellner.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to amend this article to read this year's adjusted budget of $1,918,864 with $583,661 assigned to the school budget of this school district will be adopted if the article does not receive a majority vote of all the school district voters voting in this school administrative unit. And this amendment is to correct a clerical error. Second.
Oops, that wasn't right either. Second by Ms. Roy. To be clear, in general, this article is not amendable. Either it passes or fails. In preparation of the warrant, there was a clerical mistake, and this amendment is intended to rectify that clerical mistake. The two numbers that are being changed are the third and fourth numbers on this screen, changing 1,922,864 to 1,918,864 and 584,877 to 583,661. Is there discussion on this amendment?
Joe Garuba.
Mr. Garuba.
28 Winchester Drive. This amendment you mentioned is not amendable. I'm sorry, this warrant article is not amendable. So why is it not amendable, and how is this going to play out if we make an amendment to something that's restricted statutorily?
The language is indicated by the state, and the budget is put together by the SAU governing board, and then the default is calculated again by the administration and the SAU governing board. The calculations came up with a wrong answer by something like $1,200. So we need to have the numbers correct for the DRA. They will be very unhappy if they aren't. So we are making a correction on a clerical error, not a substantive error.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, please raise your cards. The amendment passes by a card vote. Is there discussion on the article itself, Article 2? You want to talk to it?
Yes, I'll present it. Thank you. This FY22 proposed budget of $1,953,257 represents an increase of $170,000 or 9.5% over the fiscal year 21 budget. The primary budget driver is an increase of $68,000 in salaries, which includes a 3% increase for our 2 assistant superintendents, whose contracts guarantee a raise between 2 and 4%, and a 2% raise for all other staff. In addition, it includes $16,000 of other salary adjustments related to promotions of 2 existing staff members, as well as a full year salary for our facilities director, who was hired during the current fiscal year. These salary increases correspond to a related $8,000 increase in taxes. As Mr. Guillen alluded to in the operating budget presentation, the SAU's contribution to the New Hampshire retirement system increased this year as well, resulting in a $56,000 increase to the FY22 proposed budget, and there was a $19,000 increase in health insurance due to a 10.9% increase in the guaranteed maximum rate. It's worth noting that these 2 items, the New Hampshire retirement and the health insurance, comprise almost half of the overall increase compared to the current year budget and are beyond the control of the SAU. Finally, the FY22 proposed budget does not include utilizing any portion of the unassigned fund balance, of which $27,000 is included in the FY21 budget.
Any discussion on Article 2? Now, this is the last substantive article and requires a ballot vote by state law. So the only thing after this would be any other business to come before the district and a motion to dissolve the meeting. So if you're ready to vote, the ballot boxes are back there. You all should have received a ballot when you checked in, and the polls are now open. Is there anyone in the hall who still has to vote? Seeing none, the polls are closed. The voting on Article 2, we have yes 38, no 7. These numbers will be combined with the votes from Brookline that have already happened and with the co-op, and it'll be the grand total that will decide the question. Just a minute. Article 10, is there any other business in front of this meeting? Ms. Opalka. Mike, can we turn her on? It's on.
Okay. This is a question. Last year, at on the school report, there was a sentence that said, "We need to review the Hollis School District water system and how best to approach and upgrade to this critical piece of infrastructure." I have a couple of questions about the status of it right now as is. What is the expected expense? I don't look for raising my taxes at all. And I'd like to have more of a fund, as boards use the word savings account in the past. This is something we know is going to come up, rather than a bond. So I don't know what kind of money you're talking about, but I think this needs to be addressed.
Just to answer your questions, we convey to the town of Hollis that there is an ongoing need to review the water system, because presently the school district with the Hollis School Board as owners and the SAU as the representatives takes care of all the water for 2 schools, as well as those folks downtown, town offices, and the middle school. So it's a lengthy process that we just started to discuss, because we do realize that if we have to make a shift, it will be an expensive shift. But that is many years in the making, and it was just, those discussions were just in their infancy last year, and then COVID has struck, so we really haven't had much time to deal with those during the course of this school year.
So when you say large piece of infrastructure, I need a number, a ballpark.
I can't even give you a ballpark, but we work off of Rocky Pond. We've had no issues with the water levels until about 2 or 3 years ago, when we had that significant drought. Most years it's very good. And as soon as we have a number, I guarantee it won't be a number that before next year, because the work we would have done this year, which COVID delayed, is what we'll be doing next year for, getting ready for annual meeting.
Do I need to propose that this needs to be done this year? That we need to have a report on this by next year?
Well, it's very difficult, because if you're not aware, many of the state offices closed, and we're not coming out to visits.
Right.
So state inspections, building inspections. So it was very difficult. So I really don't have much of an update, other than I put it on the town's radar because I think it's something that needs to be looked at, even if we are to maintain the system, which would mean that we need to look at infrastructure and potential leaks and things like that.
So if there's an issue during the year, can we access these contingency funds that you've got here? And I'm sure it's probably not going to cover a whole new system. I'm sure we're talking a couple of million, I don't know. I'm assuming, because everything in this town costs at least $1 million something.
I can't give you a number, but I wouldn't say that you'd be that far off either.
Yeah. It concerns me that it wasn't discussed last year and that water is the basis of life. And if you don't have water in the schools, you're not going to have school in person, that's for sure.
That's correct.
So it's something you really need to address.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Hyde. Is there any discussion? All in favor of adjournment, please raise your cards. All opposed, raise your cards. We are adjourned.